This is Hayden Sparks with the Texan. I am here in Houston at the Republican Party of Texas Convention with State Representative Kyle Biedermann. Representative Biedermann, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Oh, well, Hayden, I appreciate you, but even more, I appreciate the Texan. I've been involved in the Texans ever since, Connie Burton started it, and just watching it grow and watching the news coverage that you're doing grow, the quality of the stories, and getting the facts. Since I know from the inside, you guys give the facts, and it's unbiased, which I like it to be a little more biased, but I'm glad you're not. But no, it's fantastic. We just love the Texan.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that so much. You are not returning to the legislature next year, and I imagine it's a bit nostalgic for you being here at the RPT. But I want to reflect on one item that you introduced and ask you a little bit more about that.
Okay.
You wanted to put on the statewide ballot a referendum that would let Texans decide whether to secede from the Union. From your perspective, what are the strongest arguments for Texas separating from the United States?
Well, here's something that I think is very important. My legislation never talked about seceding or leaving the Union. My legislation was only about beginning the process to talk and debate about whether Texas should or shouldn't, and what would be the ramifications. So, and we listed all the things that we were going to ask the legislature to discuss on whether it's better for Texans to be under the state of Texas or to be under the federal government. And then there would be votes in the next 5 years. In fact, we had the timeline put forth on when the next vote would be if we even liked what we found out from the Texas legislature. So it really had nothing to do with secession. It had to do with finding out who would take care of Texans better, the federal government or Texas, why, and then could we leave the Union? And then there would be, next votes would be about, yes, we think we should continue the discussion. And then, of course, there would be a vote at least 5 years away, which said in the legislation, of whether we should secede.
So put simply, would you personally support Texas returning to our status as an independent republic? And what would be the best arguments in favor of that? Well,
the first thing is we got to make sure military, Social Security, monetary, can we take care of ourselves? Are we sending more money to Washington than we're receiving back? Can we support ourselves? Those questions need to be answered. Now, there's been groups that have done the research and feel that it could happen, but my legislation was for the legislature to prove yes or no, and then find out if we should or shouldn't. But you look, and I mean, it wasn't hard to see what was going to happen, what's happening in this country. I mean, Trump did a great job for our country. But then, and I put the legislation out before the election, so it wasn't because of Biden's winning. It was because you could see what's happening to our country. Texas, I don't want Texas to go down because of New York and California, their policies, which are just horrendous for all the principles that Texas supposedly espouses. And we knew that was happening for many, many, many years, the bloated federal government. The reason we had the revolution to begin with, to begin our country, and then, of course, the Alamo. Why did we fight Texas against Mexico? Same exact reasons. And so why are we allowing Texas to be used by these other godless, immoral, money-wasting states? And so we've known that for years. Everybody has. So my legislation was, Texas, let's start the debate and then find out if we should. And when we start looking at what's going on, especially with the Biden administration, it's looking more and more that Texas can be better off on their own, especially when it comes to energy. And again, we own 95% of our land. No other state owns that much of their land. So there's just so many benefits that could happen with Texas. And the reason we left the Union to begin with and we joined the Union to begin with was because we were just a fledgling country. We didn't have all the resources, the money. We just finished defeating one of the strongest armies in the world just because of the independent principles and spirit of Americans.
So you'd contend that Texas is in a much stronger position now to be an independent country as opposed to when we joined the Union. Would that be fair?
Exactly.
Well, Representative Biedermann, you've also emphasized Texas history and the lessons that we should impart to Texas children. And though you're not returning to the legislature, I wonder, do you have any future political aspirations to continue advocating for these issues?
Well, first of all, I'm just so grateful fighting 6 years for the Alamo, to not move the cenotaph, to make sure the story is told based on history and based on the Texas Declaration of Independence. We won that battle, and praise God for that. But yes, it's all about our education system. I really believe that our education system is what is failing not just Texas, but our country. But Texas has the most rich heritage there is, and rich history of independence and the great spirit within us as true Americans, more than, even though, America is comprised of 50 states. Right now, Texas is the one that is actually exhibiting that spirit more than the other 49 states. So that's something very important to me. But about running again, I'm grateful for the 6 years. Again, I'm a term limit person, although I espouse for more than 3 terms as a legislator. But I'm taking a year off or a session off, getting my business back together, enjoying my family, and well, let's see what happens.
I imagine after 6 years at the Capitol that you'll enjoy that year to withdraw from politics a little bit and focus on other aspects of life.
I've got a beautiful house. I live in the most beautiful district in the most beautiful actual town in Texas. And yet I spent my time driving to the Capitol and other places in traffic. So I'm enjoying being home in my beautiful town and my home. But I do miss this because this is so important. The Texas legislature is so important. My main thing is, if we don't change leadership, then it's not going to change here in Texas. It's all about leadership, whether it's my business at Ace Hardware or whether it's the Texas legislature. It's all about leadership. Whether it's at the Texan. Why is the Texan doing so well? The leadership is doing a great job and getting more and more of the legislators to open up and actually give you information, because right now we're so focused in Texas, or not focused. All we get is the liberal side, and it's just sickening when we know what's really happening, but we never hear from true people or get that information. And so that's what's so important about leadership in the state of Texas. And I'm not trying to just promote the Texan, but you guys are doing a great job, and we really appreciate you.
Representative Biedermann, we appreciate your kind words so much, and it's always a privilege to get to speak with you. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, you're very welcome. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.